All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Limitless MD. I'm your host, Vikram Raya, and today I have a really good friend, a partner, um, a client, a person who's, been to so many events with us. It's Dr. Kristina Kypuros.
What if you could reclaim hours of free time each week, create legacy building wealth, and devote more energy to your passion projects without giving up on your career as a life-saving MD? Dr. Vikram Raya is a functional cardiologist, high-performance coach, and real estate expert. Is here to give you the tools, strategies, and solutions you need to transform your life, unlock your limitless potential, and achieve greatness, all while freeing up your precious time. Welcome to Limitless MD. Let's dive in.
Kristina, welcome to the show. And I'm excited for us to just have a really robust conversation about cool things that doctors think about.
Thank you, Vikram. I'm pretty excited about being here today. I've known you for a few years and I've loved growing with you. And I've also loved being a part of the Limitless community because it's not only inspirational, it is life-changing.
So let's get into it. I think a lot of doctors are wondering, what the heck is coaching? What the heck is mindset? Because they're used to, doing very well in their academics and their studies. They've worked really hard. They've gotten into their ideal profession, hopefully, and now they're successfully navigating a medical career. But a small section of those people have started navigating toward entrepreneurship, wellness, longevity. Perhaps they're thinking about, side hustles, and you're one of them. So how is this new breed of physicians thinking about things?
I think that traditional medicine has just changed from perhaps when the core of generations were building practices, working for hospitals, able to still build wealth and create enough for retirement. And I feel like over the last few decades, it's become driven by it's more of a business, and the healthcare structure has also changed in insurance reimbursement, and so it's become a lot more. It requires a lot more time of physicians to make the amount of money that used to be made, and feel comfortable retiring earlier than just 65 years of age. And so I think with that path, it's allowed us to feel like we have arrived. Now what? And realizing there's so many other fun activities out there that also bring us joy and create an opportunity for us to design our life alongside our families.
Yeah, I think the previous generation of doctors, they sacrificed a lot. They were career physicians, and their hobbies and interests, they may have had them, but they were limited access to using them throughout their career. And maybe when they retired, they finally got to play the golf that they wanted or take the trips that they wanted and all that. I think this new breed of physicians is not willing to compromise. They want to have a lifestyle design that makes sense for them while they are actively engaged with their families. Yet they want to have impact on their patients, and they want to pursue fun things, like you said, on the while they're practicing. And it's like they want it all. And the question is, why not? Right? Why can't we have it all? Right? And so, what do you think is the reason why doctors may not be able to get it all, or what's holding them back? Perhaps.
I think many of us have had a blueprint of what our lives should look like, and that has provided certainty for us and somewhat of significance because we went through training and then we became fellows and then we became attendings, and so that's where we gained our significance. And again, we arrive, right? And now what? And so I think that it's just definitely opened the path to uh, we live in a different culture, a different generation, a different world. And I also think that, again, going back to family, at least personally, I had my kids older and I want to include them in everything that I do in this time of my life,
Yeah.
without sacrificing time with them. And
Yeah.
so again, designing your life to allow for that opportunity.
That's awesome.
I think many of us look up to you in terms of the achievements that you not only obtained in medicine, but now as a real estate investor, as an entrepreneur, and you're highly admired in our community. I think many of us want to know, what was the mindset you had when you started and the mindset you have to have now with so many identities that you carry?
You know, I'll be honest, I didn't think I would even be successful in a lot of the things I started. There's always a fear, there's a doubt. I had imposter syndrome. I still have imposter syndrome, right? I'm like, is it really like, am I really an authority on XYZ? Like who's going to listen to me, right? That we have all this doubt and questioning, but I don't think that ever goes away. It just gets quieted down. So what happens really is your confidence, your certainty, limiting beliefs become empowering beliefs, and you just start stacking this like amazing like table of strength, and then you collapse the limiting belief table and you strengthen your empowering belief table. And so I think that was huge. But when I got started, it was more like, all right, well, I have nothing to lose. Worst case scenario, I'm going to be a doctor. I mean, like, I can't really. I my floor is pretty high compared to like the average person in the country, and so I think doctors should recognize that. Like, that's our secret advantage. Like, your floor is okay. I'm an ENT doctor. I'm a plastic surgeon. I'm pulmonary critical care. Well, that's a really damn good floor. And so that I guess my dad always said, "You're lucky you're a doctor." I didn't really understand what he meant by that, but now I understand. It's like, it's knowing that I can always go back, put the stethoscope on, and earn a decent living and take care of my family and my relatives and be okay. So that gave me the courage to move forward. And number two is really having people believe in me. So obviously my parents, my wife, but then really like other coaches and mentors whom I had brought on earlier in my career. Like, I didn't think I could afford it. I didn't. No one was doing it around me. It was very novel at that time, and especially physicians doing it. And so, but I just thought that, well, why not try now when I'm young, and you know, and I also knew that I don't want to make mistakes. That if avoid, I'm going to make mistakes. Don't get me wrong, and I've made mistakes. But if there's things I can avoid doing that someone else has already done, that's wisdom. That's taking advantage of their experience and wisdom. And so having someone like that in my ear, and also it's like, you have your friends, you have your family, you have your people, but everyone's there to protect you really, but no one's there to sometimes push you forward. And having that coach or person in my ear pushing us forward, and the gentleman I'm talking about, he's been really instrumental in my life. And so um, I would say that was a secret weapon. Like, it was a secret weapon to have someone believe in you so much, more than you even believed in yourself. And so I think all those things were, and he would also, if you go to your limits expand. But if you never go to your limits, then you stay contained, right? And so that most people have a fixed mindset. Well, he introduced me to books that changed my fixed mindset into growth mindset. He introduced me to conferences, to concepts, to meditation, like things that I never used to do, right? Morning routines, right? These are all fundamental concepts for success that, now I take for granted, but they weren't part of my ecosystem or my being at the beginning.
That's beautiful. And I'd have to agree with you. You have been one of my mentors and coach, now friend and partner. And I agree. Coaching changed my life as well, because I think you believed in me and continue to believe in me so much. And so I definitely, Mario and I love doing this life with you and Limitless. And so along that, I think some of our friends would want to know, what are your daily affirmations? How do you stay grounded? And what do you practice every day to reduce that noise?
Yeah. And, I think I was talking about that on another podcast, but like signal and noise, right? There's so much noise out there, so much distraction. There's the 80% that distracts you versus the 20. And then if you take, that's the Pareto principle, but then you go to the extreme Pareto, the 1% that you need to do instead of the 99. And so I've used a lot of affirmations in my life. No one's really asked me that. It's a really good question. I use like, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. That's a common one. Another one I say is this too shall pass. And then I combine that with the best is yet to come. And then, I read this book there's a famous philosopher. He's like a angel investor in Silicon Valley, and his name is Naval Ravikant. And his book is called The Almanac of Naval. It's an amazing book, so I recommend anyone get it. It's like one of my most gifted books that I give out. But his brother wrote a book called, and his brother is also a successful entrepreneur, Kamal Ravikant, and he has a book called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And this guy literally, I think he went through a really horrible breakup. His company went under. Like he was ready to almost end his life, but he figured out that self-love is the way to get out of all of this. And he kept on saying, I love myself. I love myself. And he would repeat that incessantly for like 3 months. And then his whole life turned around. And he there's more to it than that, but he talked about it in his book. And I read the book at a very poignant time in my life. And I was like, man, okay, self-love. Like and so like, this is weird. This is dorky. And I'm sure everyone's going to make fun of me, but going to the mirror and then looking in the mirror and saying, I love myself, and looking in your eyes and just saying it and actually believing it. It's good because we don't do that. We give love to everyone else but ourselves. And I think that's important. And the other thing is this, I'm getting into Stoicism and Buddhism and other philosophies. And, there's a concept of impermanence. We're here just for a transient amount of time. So my success is impermanent. My failure is impermanent. My relationships with these people on this earth are impermanent. So don't take yourself too seriously. Don't take this whole moment too seriously. Just enjoy the presence. And, I was talking to my dad the other day. He was dropping me off at the airport. I visited him in Atlanta. And, he's, for a 77-year-old, he is a go-getter. He's like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do this. And I'm like, that's great. But I was just telling him, hey, don't forget about mom. Don't forget about being with your grandkids and enjoying, whatever you have. Because whether you're 7 or you're 77, like my dad, you don't know how many years you've been allotted. And so let's say that this is the last year of my life, and then I only have, 8 months left. If I'm stressed and worried and not taking care of my family and friends, and I'm not working on my health, that will have been a waste, I think, So you've got to have that memento mentor. I have to look it up, but there's a Stoic philosophy saying, remember you're mortal. And it's what the Caesars and then the emperors of Rome, they would actually pay somebody and go, they would memoriam mortem or something. I have to look it up, but they would have someone pay them to whisper them in their ear periodically, so they would stay grounded, And I thought that was very interesting. And as I'm starting to get older, like I want this success, I want this growth, I want all of this, but now I want simplicity, in the sense that simplicity scales, complexity fails. The other thing is this: I want something called peaceful profits, Kristina. The hustle culture, it's been a part of who I am for a while, and a lot of other folks who've been very successful. But if you keep hustling, you're going to burn out. You're not going to have the stamina to do it for, decades. You need to compare the hustle, which you still need it at times, but pair it with flow, So having the hustle with the flow, having the grit with the grace, I think is what I'm starting to learn in my second half of my life. And then, I've been humbled. I've had challenges in real estate. I've had people in my family die, recently that I really cared about. And it's given me a more depth and a texture that I didn't have when I was younger.
It sounds like your maturity level has exponentially grown with all these experiences you've had. And I'm so glad that you shared what does success look like for you, because that was another question I wanted to hear from you, where you stand now. I know it's been a tough year at so many levels. And so again, you continue to model what resilience looks like and how to stay grounded And I agree with you. My husband and children, we've been going to Europe for the summer. And I think it goes back to that flow. I think you know that I work really hard. I give 110% to every project I commit to, whether it's in medicine, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in coaching, whether it's with friendships, whether it's a mom. And so it's really hard for me to power that down. However, when I go to Europe, the noise definitely simmers, and I'm able to visualize and see how Europeans live. They just sit there in a restaurant, in a cafe, sipping on beverage of choice. Some countries smoke more than others, but they're just like enjoying life.
Yeah.
They're having community, they're having
Yeah.
conversations, they're laughing, and and you see people everywhere. And so, the blue zones, that's actually one of their principles is community.
Yeah.
And so I'm reminded every time I leave for the summer that it's okay to quiet down, to create simplicity,
Yes.
because life in America can be very complex, and it's so easy to get into this hustle of wanting more and being an overachiever for those of us who are innately
Yeah.
wired that way.
Yeah. And a couple of things, and then we'll definitely have to make a part 2 of this interview for sure. But the word savor, which you mentioned, and also surrender, those have been on my mind. Like really savoring every like if you eat a grape, close your eyes and just take that grape in your mouth and just all the juices and the sweetness and then all of it. Like that's what we never do that. We're just so fat. Like there's a concept called mindful eating where you don't have your phone. You're talking to someone and enjoying the conversation, or you're just sitting there and enjoying every morsel and chewing like what do they say, 21 times or something. Like these are some of the things that we need to And a mentor of mine said you sometimes have to slow down to speed up, and maybe this is a season for all of us is perhaps slow down. And the other word I like is surrender. And surrender for me doesn't mean give up. It means surrendering to worrying about the outcome and saying, you know what, I'm going to control my inputs and I have faith in God, universe, whatever, that things will work out as they should. And so I think savor and surrender are two vocabulary words I would like the doctors to start incorporating. And I guess to leave it on one last note is really, I think we all are in many aspects of life trying to go for it and be successful. But I think presence is a gift we need to give to the people around us. And so we can enjoy the journey we're on. So I would say what I found is I feel like I'm not present as much as I could be with sometimes my wife or my kids or maybe my clients or patients. And I'm making an extra effort to say, hey, I'm here right now. This is my life, this little cone, this little dome of energy. And then I'm going to go to the next thing and the next thing. But each thing is that thing and nothing else. And, they say multitasking is a myth. And so multi thought processes are, also probably not the right move. And what happens then is you're less tired, you're less fatigued, your mind is not running on so many different processes and it's just, focused on one thing at a time. So anyway, see, these are some of the lessons that I'm picking up and learning, and then hopefully I can pass on to whoever else would benefit.
I love those words. My word of this year is alignment, and it sounds like you have been practicing a lot of that as well.
Yes.
In the last few months. And
Yes.
so I'd like to share that word with our community.
Let's leave the community with a couple of cool books. I'm going to recommend a book. I think We Are as Gods, which is talking about the future of humanity, and Peter Diamandis, and he's talking about how AI and exponential technologies and longevity and space exploration and all these things are starting to happen. And so it was a really good book about the abundance of the future. What is your book? Do you recommend, folks?
Yeah, so I'm reading Goddesses in Every Woman. It's actually written by a physician, Jean Shanada Bolin, and it's the powerful archetypes in women's lives. And so what's been inspiring, right, is that there's Athena, there's Hera, there's Artemis, and I've learning that I'm very much Athena because I'm very strategic, very go-getter. But perhaps I should, tap into Artemis, who's free-spirited and surrenders. And um, so just going through the different identities in
Yeah.
different stages of our
Yeah.
life, and which goddess do I have to tap into at that in this season?
That's awesome. For our next chat together, we should talk about the 4 archetypes. I think it's the warrior, the king, the magician, so
Yes.
that might be a fun one. All right. Well, thank you so much. It was an awesome conversation, and I can't wait to do more of these with you. And thank you, listeners, for supporting the podcast. I really appreciate you all. And until next time, be phenomenal.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Limitless MD. If you found value from this episode, I encourage you to share this episode with a friend and let me know by leaving a review. For more information, make sure you check out the links in the show notes below or simply visit vikramraya.com. Until next time, be phenomenal.